Wars fans, we need to talk because I've just learned a terrible truth about The Mandalorian Season 3. I just got done watching Episode 6 of The Mandalorian Season 3, and I, like many of you, was left scratching my head and just wondering, what happened? Why is this season of The Mandalorian so bad? Why does it feel so different compared to the other two seasons? Well, this all led me to talking to some other insider sources and scoopers, and holy crap, what I learned is shocking. It is horrible news, and I've decided to talk about it because I think people have a right to know. So I'm going to break it all down. I urge you to smash the freaking like button, mostly because people are going to shoot the messenger on this one and dislike me into oblivion. Okay, so first off, I just want to say this is literally one of the most reliable people that I talk to behind the scenes. An incredible source that has gifted me some of the biggest W's I've ever had while covering the nerdy news. So now with that out of the way, I'm going to sort of share the gist of the conversation that I had with this person, which explains all of the crazy details that are still like, what? And then in the back half of this video, I'm going to speculate about what other things I think are going on and just like how screwed Star Wars actually is, because it's even worse than I thought. So the first thing that happened was me talking to this source and them basically saying that they believed Jon Favreau does not give a shit about the writing anymore. And I was like, what? There's no way that's true. How could that actually be what's happening? The source then clarified that's 100% true. They know it for a fact, which really shocked me. This was like truly mind-blowing information. And so then I started talking about all these rumors that I had been hearing, and I hear these rumors all the time when I'm on stream, when I'm doing Nerd Theory, or just in the comment section of videos or on Twitter. A lot of people have been bringing up the fact that there's this big rumor that Kathleen Kennedy was interfering with The Mandalorian, with the Book of Boba Fett, and it pissed Jon Favreau off so badly that he was ready to quit. He was ready to walk away from Lucasfilm completely. Now, look, the truth is, I've been hearing this rumor for a long time, and I haven't heard it come from anybody that I consider to be reliable, so I thought this was just more BS. You know, the kind of stories that come from masked people that have been proven over and over again and not really know what they're talking about, or, you know, the kind of people that make future Star Wars content. I basically thought it was bullshit. It smelled like bullshit. It just seemed like it was coming from bullshit places. And alas, it is actually true. My source told me this story was actually real, including the part where Jon Favreau almost walked away. So according to this person, this all really has to do with the Book of Boba Fett. And it's really the idea that Disney and Kathleen Kennedy wanted to take the show, The Mandalorian, and spin it out into its own universe. My source basically told me that Jon Favreau was forced into making the Book of Boba Fett rather than just the next season of The Mandalorian, and also that it was Kathleen Kennedy that made the Book of Boba Fett tie so much into The Mandalorian. Now, things are already on shaky ground for reasons I'm going to get into in just a minute here, but it appears that the reception of the Book of Boba Fett was something that Jon Favreau took pretty hard. Because as you know, that show was really not looked at that fondly, and the two Mandalorian episodes that are just in that show, although they are awesome, did really not go over well with most fans. So just so we're all on the same page, the story that I was told was this idea of expanding The Mandalorian into its own cinematic universe was a Disney edict, and so was the Book of Boba Fett. Tying it so closely to The Mandalorian was apparently also Kathy's idea. But I think the real thing that set all of this off is indeed the drama with Pedro Pascal. And I know, even saying that, some of you guys are going to be like freaking out. Some of you are going to be so triggered by that. But I was told again that that was real, that Grace Randolph was right when she talked about it. And I don't think you have to be freaking Doogie Howser level genius. You don't have to be Sherlock freaking Holmes to figure out what's going on here. They are obviously shifting The Mandalorian to be about Bo-Katan. And so to reiterate what the reports were about Pedro Pascal during season 2, it was said that he very badly wanted more time with his helmet off. Things were already getting tense between Jon Favreau and Pedro Pascal because of this, but apparently it exploded to a certain level on the set of season 2 to where Pedro Pascal walked off and did not return to the show until much later, just to film some few more scenes and to do some ADR. And so the reason that the entire Mandalorian story is so disjointed now is because they made changes to season 2. They quickly made the Book of Boba Fett with putting in 2 important episodes for the Mandalorian after they had decided what their course of action was going to be from here with regards to Pedro Pascal. Pedro Pascal was not present at all during principal photography when they were actually shooting the show, and his role has been very much reduced to where he just comes in and he does voice over work. On top of that, Gina Carano, who Jon Favreau was building an entire spin-off show around, was unceremoniously fired away from Disney by Lucasfilm. And now The Mandalorian Season 3 is injecting elements of the Rangers of the New Republic show that they were going to do as a spin-off into this main show. And so The Mandalorian has not been the same since Season 2, and it is because you have this one force, which is Lucasfilm, trying to make this into a franchise, trying to get as much out of this hit show as they possibly can in a very capitalistic way. And then you have Jon Favreau, who wrote and created a massive hit television show that essentially has been hurt by the fact that the star of the show doesn't want to support what's going on. And he's apparently just dealing with the fact that he has this hit show. He has a lot of ownership over this thing, but at the end of the day, he is just a piece in the pie of this big machine that is Disney and that is Lucasfilm. And the Mandalorian universe itself, and even Grogu, is bigger than Jon Favreau. And so Favreau's stuck in this weird spot. It's very difficult, and apparently that is why this season is so sloppy. So that's as far as everything I was told from my source. Now I kind of want to speculate. I want to get into what I think's going on here, because from my perspective, Jon Favreau just creates this cool show. You'll recall some of the stories around the creation of this show where he had this idea, he was writing this thing, he couldn't even get Dave Filoni to read the scripts. He was sending him like pictures of his new Christmas Star Wars socks, and eventually he did get Dave to check it out, and then they partnered together on this project and they start making it. And to their own admission, they did not think that what they were doing with Grogu was going to end up being as big as it was. And Grogu was such a success from Disney's perspective that they wanted to really double down on that. And the amount of merchandising and crazy things that were done with Grogu was nuts. And I think what you have going into season 2 was this entire team with Dave, with John, with Kathy, and everybody's really excited about the prospect of what this can be. They start building out the Filoniverse. And I think it was at that time when, yes, Kathleen Kennedy came in and wanted to expand this out into its own cinematic universe. And I'm sure that John and Dave were actually up for that prospect. But then when they get into season 2 and there's all this drama with Pedro Pascal, and according to Gina Carano, something happened on the set, perhaps even related to what was going on with Pascal. But regardless of that, it's the case that he did walk off the set. And I think that caused John to really rethink things. And I think you see the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian as essentially somewhat of an end for the entire show. But I think while all of that was going on, you have Kathy looking at Grogu, looking at The Mandalorian as a property, and essentially saying, we're going to keep this train rolling. We need to print more of this Baby Yoda money. And I don't know if they were planning on doing a Book of Boba Fett show before the success of The Mandalorian Season 1, but they did have a Boba Fett movie that was abandoned. So they already had some of the assets and some story written for some kind of a project with Boba. And the Book of Boba Fett just feels like a really rushed show. There's all kinds of weird elements and writing that just gets you from one point to another point with a bunch of member berries, but it doesn't have the same feel of The Mandalorian, particularly The Mandalorian Season 2. And so I think what you have with the Book of Boba Fett is a really rushed, put together show that is essentially season 2.5 for The Mandalorian. And I think it was Disney's call to essentially just get Grogu right back with Din Djarin so they could still keep that show going and print all that Grogu money. And then you have the Gina Carano firing. And John's sitting there and he's like, dude, my spinoff that I was working on just got completely canceled. You did this thing with Gina. You're also forcing me to put Grogu and Mando episodes into to the Book of Boba Fett, this is a mess, and I do think he considered walking away. Now, he was likely convinced with a lot of money and a lot of promises from Lucasfilm that it would work itself out if he came back to it. But whether or not he's truly just going through the motions and doesn't care anymore, or he's simply putting together a season that he thinks is the one he needs to get the entire show and shared universe back on track, regardless, it is a sloppy season. This is why it doesn't feel the same. I think pretty much everything has changed behind the scenes. They have completely removed any connection that Thrawn was originally going to have with Moff Gideon. I think they are just going to put Moff Gideon into this bit with the Mandalorians and try to sort of isolate that. And I think it's even possible that Dave Filoni himself has made decisions to keep Thrawn and Ezra and his entire show far removed from the mess that is currently the Mandalorian. And it's kind of unfortunate because Ahsoka as a show seems so incredible to me, and I'm so excited to see what Dave Filoni does with that show. And the Skeleton Crew is kind of an interesting project. I wonder what's going on with that. It is supposedly going to connect with the Mandalorian stuff and also with the Ahsoka show itself. And so perhaps they will figure this all out and they will get all of these shows back on track and get back to a really magical feeling and really well thought out stories that are going to continue to tell the fans what was going on during the gap between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. That's that big 30-year gap that they have time to tell stories in. But I also think this is bad, and Star Wars itself is on really shaky ground. And if this is indeed a part of Kathleen Kennedy having friction and issues with Jon Favreau and the other creatives over there, then it's just one more thing that she is meddling in and screwing up for everyone. And so again, I can't even believe this is true. I thought all those stories were crap, and I think there's this big tendency to just blame everything on Kathleen Kennedy, but I wouldn't be making this video if I didn't hear it from a very reliable person. I can't believe it, but it does seem like Kathleen Kennedy is the reason The Mandalorian is screwed up, and Jon Favreau may be all the way checked out and just delivering what he has to, going through the motions, cashing his checks until something resolved. Of course, let me know what you think about this crazy story. Please share this out so more people can understand just how bad it is behind the scenes. And if you want to watch more and check out something that's actually really fun, why not watch this video I just did breaking down some incredible leaks from the Ahsoka show? I'm legitimately really excited for that freaking show.